In general, it's not going to be so easy. So, for example, if instead of predicting the loan, if we're trying to figure out is there an animal in this image, is there a predator in this image, it's a lot harder to come up with the right set of attributes and figure out what the appropriate values would be. Right? It's an image, it's a bitmap. A bitmap is a square matrix of pixels, of colors. So, and it should be obvious to you that using individual pixels as attributes is a really, really bad idea. It just won't work. So we'll talk about some possible ways of representing a bitmap as attribute value pairs. But just in general, it's going to be difficult, and the process is going to be different for every domain that you work with. You will use one set of attributes if you work with images. You will actually use a slightly different set if you work with videos. You will use a completely different set if you're working with speech or with music. And text is going to look totally different as well. So the process is very different depending on what data you're working with. But there's still a general guideline to how you should pick representations. So, and the guideline is, think about what you're trying to do. Right? What we're trying to do is we're trying to learn a predictor. So we're trying to learn a function f that will take our representation, x is our attribute value pairs, and predict something. True, false, or a number, or something else. So a naturally you should pick x's that give some information about what you're trying to predict. Now that's actually pretty hard. If you think about detecting predators in an image, how do you go from pixels to something that is indicative of a predator? That's not very straightforward. But one idea that works in surprisingly many domains, it's not a method, it's more like a guideline or an idea to keep in mind when you're developing representations, is similarity. And what similarity means is if you have several instances, if you have several examples, and they have the same class, so, for example, if you have a number of images and all of those images have a predator in them, whatever representation you construct should make those instances similar to each other in some sense. And similar instances means that the attributes, the values of the same attributes, should be similar to each other. It's easy to see it in the numeric case. So in the numeric case, the numbers should be close. So if you have attribute 3, the values for attribute 3 should be similar if the class of the two instances is the same, and it should be different, the numbers should be far apart, if one image has a predator and another one doesn't. So it's just a general guideline. When you're designing attribute value representations, think similarity. Think trying to make things with the same label as similar as possible, and things with different labels as dissimilar as possible.